Hi, I'm John Knoerzer and this is BoardGameGeek TV. I'm going to be doing an explanation video on Big Points by Schimdt Spiele. Again, it's in their easy play line, and this one was designed by Brigitte and Wolfgang Ditt. Setup for Big Points is pretty easy. First, construct the cardboard staircase, making sure that the top level is 4 going down to 3, 2, 1, 0. Then put aside one chip of each color, excluding black and white, and put them right next to the staircase. Now take the rest of the counters, including the black and white ones, mix them all up, and create a path starting from the staircase and then going until you run out of counters. Place all the pawns at the end of the pathway. Now the pathway doesn't have to be a straight line, it can curve and you can do whatever you want it to do, just as long as it's obvious which counter is the next counter in line. Generally, the shape of your pathway is going to be determined by your table size, or in this case, what will fit in the frame of the shot. Once you have the pathway set up, you're ready to start playing. On your turn, you're going to move a pawn. Now in Big Points, players aren't specific colors, so they can move any pawn they want. When they choose the pawn they want to move, they move it to the next counter of the same color. Then they choose the counter before or after it that's empty and collect it and add it to its supply of counters. So I will do that. Let's go through some examples of this to make sure you understand exactly what you do. So let's go through some examples to make sure that everybody knows what they're doing on their turn. Let's say it's my turn and I want to move the purple pawn. The next empty purple counter is that first purple counter. And now I have a choice of taking the empty counter before or right after it. Now there is no counter right after it, so I would have to take the one before it. So I would take this one. Now let's say Beth is next in line and she also wants to move the purple pawn. So she moves the purple pawn to the next available purple counter. Now for her, she has an empty counter before and after it, but the next empty counter before it is this one. So she has a choice between this one or this one. And let's say she takes this one. Now I haven't explained white yet, and we'll get to that in just a second, but it is a chip that you can collect. So before we get to explaining what white counters do, we're going to explain black counters. Let's say I make this move and take this black counter. Now black counters allow you to take an extra turn. Now I cannot use a black counter the turn I actually collect it, but the next turn I can actually take an extra turn. And I can also get a special ability for using the black counter. So let's take my next turn and see how that works. So my first part of my turn is going to be moving this red one here, and I will take actually that red one. Now I'm going to play and I'll turn in my black counter, and now I can play again. But when I turn in a black counter, not only can I move forward, but I can also move backward. So I can move this purple pawn to here and then grab that purple counter. So when you use a black counter, that would be the only time in the game you can actually move a pawn backwards. And there is a limit of one black counter per turn. Let's fast forward to the end of the game and get the last little bits of rules that we need to play. So, just like the beginning of the line, if you move a pawn to where there is no free counter in front of it, you have to take the free counter behind it. So just like the beginning of the line, you would have to take the counter in front of it if there is no counter behind it. So in this point, let's say I want to move the purple pawn. Now the purple pawn, there is no purple counter in front of it. So it would actually move to the next open spot in the staircase. And you then would collect the purple counter that's next to the staircase that we actually put out in setup. So next example, next person goes, they want to move red up. So red goes up, and then you take that red counter. Play goes until all of the pawns are actually on the staircase. So let's go to endgame scoring. Now, each counter is going to be worth a certain amount of points at the end of the game, except for blacks. Blacks are worth absolutely no points. If you didn't use them during the game to get a second turn, then you're out of luck. You should have used them before, and they're worth nothing. They also don't count towards the value of whites. Now, you might say, well, I don't know what you mean, value of whites. So let me explain how the white counters score. The white counters are going to score 1 point for every other color you have other than white and black. So in this situation, they're worth 4 points each. So that, because I have a yellow, I have blue, I have red, and I have purple. So they're worth 4 points each. Now, if I had gotten a green, they'd be worth 5 points each, but I didn't. The other counters are worth the value of the step the corresponding colored pawn is on. So my purples are worth 4 points, my red is worth 3 points each, my blue is worth 1 point, and while I have a whopping 5 yellow counters, they're worthless because they were on the bottom step. So my final score would be, my whites are worth 4, so that's 4 times 5, that's 20, 26, 27 points. So that would be my final score. Generally 27 points is a little low, and I probably didn't win the game. But that should give you all you need to know to play Big Points. And that was Big Points. I hope you enjoyed it, and check out our other explanation videos on BoardGameGeek TV. So that is the final thing that you really want to know. It's not the final thing you really want to know, so I'm actually going to set this back up and redo this. Ha ha! Ha ha! Ha ha, says me. So you have to take the empty counter behind it. And I'm going to have to refilm this because my hand has been in the way this whole time, and I'm sure it's really distracting.